on the last day of the International Builder Show, we're concluding our programming with an interview with my friend Mark LaLiberte, who has so many hats it would take 20 minutes to show them all and go through everything. But you're the Vice President of Construction Instruction, President of LaLiberte Online, right?
Yep. Yep.
And you were nominated for the Hanley Award, which is very prestigious.
Yes, very nice.
And this year you're serving as a Vision 2020 chair, leading the focus area on building science.
That's right, building enclosures in general, yes.
Right, which transitions us into the real credit of Mark LaLiberte is as building scientist and educator and trainer. You know, from your standpoint currently, because you're on job sites every day with hundreds of builders a year, and you are training thousands of builders a year through construction instruction, where are we now as a baseline point for, you know, before we can talk about where we need to go, you know, where are we now, and in terms of the awareness of building science and performance principles and best practices?
It's a great question, Rick. I think the idea that, you know, I've had a chance to do this for almost 30 years, and seeing this evolution, I guess if somebody would have said even 20 years ago, when you're in your 50s, there will still be people working on understanding the fundamentals, the physics parts. And I guess the idea of the fundamentals of rain and moisture and heat, all the things that we know to work on, are still a bit of a challenge, it seems. And I think we've, in some cases, let litigation or insurance things drive change. So we wait until there's a problem before we make that modification. So I would say that we're better, significantly better than ever before. And it's a slower transition than I think I would hoped. But I would say that our knowledge base about where we are and where we're going to go, understanding better about moisture and airflow, is really finding its way into the codes and into the process that the building community is considering. And that's going to be a great challenge as we move forward, but the greatest of opportunities in education.
So I'm kind of curious, because I know that you presented at Joe Seabrook's infamous summer camp this past year. What are building scientists talking about among themselves? I mean, how much should we trust what you know, and what other building scientists know in terms of the advice that, you know, we're going to, if we're going to change our practices, can we be assured that the building science community itself is giving us information we can rely on?
Yeah, and I think that's a great question. My hope is that we rely at least on the fundamentals of physics. Let's agree that when rain falls and heat flows, these things we know for sure. But I would agree there's a mixed message thing going on in a lot of parts where people say, do this, another guy says, do this. And if I was a builder and I said, I've got two differing opinions, I'm not going to do anything until I figure out which one of you guys want to agree. And so I think there's a little bit of that. I think Hanley Wood's done a great job of trying to produce articles and pieces about, and that's the opportunity of journalism. Let's get all the data, pull it together, and then say this is the vetted best practice. But I think best practice is quite clear. And I think best practice is something that the community agrees that managing heat, managing air, and managing water are the fundamentals. And how we do that can be sometimes a little bit of minutia. But I would think that's a pretty good agreement in the building science community. And I didn't speak this year, as a couple years ago. But I think part of it is that we see the finer points coming out. How does insulation that's sprayed in foam sense, how does it have to be installed properly? Foam seemed like a great solution. Just spray foam around, everything will be fine. The manufacturers and everybody gets together and say, well, you know what, if it's not done right, it doesn't work. And so I think that in the building science community, they're starting to fine-tune the pieces. Joe Seabrook calls it his perfect wall. How do we design a wall that handles water and vapor and heat flow and make that work? And it's not that complicated. It's framing and good insulation practices, good water management practices, a good quality window, and attention to detail. So it isn't remarkably evolutionary, but it's still common practice can build a great building. But I think the community, the building science committee, is in fairly decent agreement on most things. It's kind of like getting anybody in the bureaucracy of government to agree on the fundamentals, which of course is impossible.
Take a minute to talk about your app.
Well, we just had myself and a few other people, Gord Cook and Justin Wilson, have created an app, and it's really right now it's about the #1 app on the iTunes and reference section. About 70,000 people have downloaded an app that shows graphics and details, videos that they can actually look on their phones. So on iPhones and iPads, Android's about ready to come out in a couple of weeks. It allows people on a job site to look at something, track that, show their fellow people, and I think everybody's going to see that an iPhone technology is something. Today I'm about ready to put in a window. How should I do that? And I think that that's a really a nice change, and we're seeing thousands of people a day engaged with that.
Right.
And I'm really excited to see as that progress can happen instantaneously.
It's called construction instruction, right?
Yep, and it's a free app, and it's
Yeah.
easy to download. And so if you go to the App Store, it just says construction instruction,
Yeah.
and you can grab that. So
That's great. Well, thank you, Mark. It was
Pleasure.
really fantastic.
Awesome.
I could spend an hour doing this.
that's awesome. Thanks,
Yeah.
you guys. Nice
Thank
to see
you.
you guys. Thank you.